Arthur's Whisky has been on my to-watch list since the film came out at the start of this year. Finally got around to seeing it. I had such high hopes because we have an amazing cast, and it was a tremendous disappointment. There are some nice messages in it, and the performances are very good, but the method of storytelling, the narrative structure is not good. The rate at which it cuts back and forth between the new and the old characters is really poorly done, and I will explain what I mean by that in a little bit. And then something happened towards the end of the film that I just think felt unnecessary, like they were trying too hard to make it, well, more moving or more emotional, and it just didn't work. So there will be spoilers in a little bit as I talk more about these things in detail, but for now, there won't be any spoilers. This was released, of course, this year in 2024. It's directed by Stephen Cookson, written by Alexis Zagerman, and we have an amazing cast, including Diane Keaton, Patricia Hodge, and Lulu. We also have Genevieve Gaunt, Esme Lonsdale, and Hannah Howland playing the young versions of those characters. And this happens because Joan has recently lost her husband. Joan is played by Patricia Hodge, and she finds an elixir that her husband has invented. And if you drink this, it will temporarily turn you into your younger self. And there we have the actors playing the younger versions of the characters. And there are several things that I didn't like about this, but I will say I have no complaints with any of the performances, and not with the casting either. I think the casting for the younger versions was pretty well done. But there are a couple of issues, and the first is that I don't think they got the pacing right with how much time we spent with the older versus the younger versions, and there were times when they would randomly appear as their younger selves, and it just felt unnecessary. It felt too frequent, like we were going back and forth unnecessarily. And also, we didn't get to spend as much time with the older versions, and I feel like the film is very heavily relying on that stellar cast of Keaton, Hodge, and Lulu to really sell the film. So when a bulk of it doesn't actually involve them, that's really disappointing. The other reason it doesn't work is because the younger versions don't feel like older characters in a younger person's body. That's clearly what they're going with, allowing these older characters to live their life intermittently as if they were their younger selves, having their younger bodies and indeed their younger appearance, because of course people treat people differently, rightly or wrongly, let's face it, wrongly, when somebody looks younger or indeed older. And it's an interesting concept, but very poorly executed. As I said, there's nothing wrong with the performances or the casting, but the scenes with the younger characters are mostly very boring. And it didn't feel like I was watching an older character in a younger person's body or as their younger self. I don't think they did a very good job with that at all. And that's kind of the whole point of the film. So that was tremendously a letdown. And there's not really a lot of redeeming qualities about this other than the really brilliant cast. And when we did get to see them, Keaton, Hodge, and Lulu, I enjoyed their performances. I enjoyed the characters interacting with each other. They had some quite moving and meaningful conversations, but not enough to restore my faith in the film. There are a lot of problems with this. And it's interesting because when I watched this, I hadn't read any reviews, but I just had this feeling that it was going to be a really great film based on nothing other than the cast and the loose premise. It sounded really fascinating. And maybe I went in with too high hopes. But even if my hopes were not that high, I think I would have been disappointed. It's an amazing idea and really terribly executed. The narrative structure is not good. The portrayal of the younger characters, again, not because of the performances, but because of the way those characters are played, the way they're talking, the way they're behaving, the situations that they're in. They just don't utilize the concept. It's more so like they've kind of gone back in time, which is not what happened. They are meant to be their older selves, but just with their youthful appearance, if you like, and that doesn't come across. And it doesn't work very well at all. And the dialogue with the younger characters, usually, most of the time, doesn't feel like the same older characters talking. It feels like they're talking the way they would do if they were that age now. There are a couple of occasions where that's not the case, but for the most part, I think it was badly written and very poorly done, and I'm rather disappointed. So I will now explain the spoiler that happens towards the end, where I feel like they were trying to make it meaningful, but it didn't really work. So this is a huge spoiler. And to their credit, I didn't see it coming. I was genuinely surprised. So big spoiler. Now, I am, of course, talking about the death of Linda. And I didn't see this coming. I feel like with hindsight, I can see where they were kind of setting that up, but it's not something that I expected. But it was very brief, and I feel like they put that in there maybe to shock us, to move us, to give us this sudden shake of, look what can happen in a moment's notice, make sure you live your life to the fullest, whatever your age. But it just felt gimmicky almost, like, hey, let's inject a little bit of death in here to shake things up, but we're not going to give it enough time to really have a strong emotional impact, and we're very quickly going to move on from it. And I didn't enjoy it. I feel like they put that in there. Maybe they realized the film just wasn't well written, so they put that in there to kind of try and redeem it, make it a bit more emotional. But that part, I think, was also very poorly done. So I don't have a problem with the decision to kill off Linda. I didn't like it. I didn't want it to happen. But I can maybe understand their thought process behind it. But again, that part was also very poorly executed. Needless to say, Arthur's Whisky it's not a well-written film. The performances are fine. I enjoyed watching Diane Keaton, Patricia Hodge, and Lulu, and that part was absolutely fine. No complaints there, I guess. But the narrative, although an amazing idea, was really terribly executed. And I had such high hopes for this, and unfortunately, it just didn't deliver.